Hey guys, I'm Mike with the School of Self Reliance, and today we're going to talk about the Gear Snob, or, sometimes I like to call them fanboys. But, normally it's really a snobbish attitude towards gear. Now, I want to say up front, you should buy the best gear that your money can buy for you. Absolutely. That is the premise you should go on. Buy the best that you can afford to buy. No question. But what I'm talking about is the guys who their attitude is almost that you can't survive anything without a $500 backpack and a $600 custom knife and just the really expensive stuff. And don't get me wrong, if you can afford it, by all means buy what you can afford. I'm not saying not to do that. I want to make that upfront clear. But the idea that, and I see guys do it all the time, they almost shame each other on the internet, oh, you're using that. I mean, well, if you could have something that was worth something, you'd buy this. And they even shame gear that's perfectly reasonable. I've got a Becker. Well, I've got a blind horse knife. You've committed pagan, heathen idolatry to run around with that Becker. And it couldn't be further from the truth. But yeah, these guys will attack you online. They'll attack you at the gun range. They'll attack you anywhere that you go. I mean, they're really, honestly, it's like a damn clique. They know each other, and then they try to outdo each other. And don't get me wrong, I buy nice stuff and I buy nice gear, and I buy things that are expensive, but there's a lot of guys out there who, one, can't afford these things, and two, the question you really have to ask is how much better for the money is what you're getting. Let's say you get a $400 knife from Blind Horse or, Pathfinder Forge or, 100 other different places. How much better in quality is it than its $100 SE counterpart, okay, or $130 counterpart? How much better? Because a lot of it comes down to just personal like and dislike. And it happens with firearms, it happens with knives, it happens with backpacks, happens with boots, it happens with everything. I mean, right down to the handkerchief you're blowing your nose in. Somehow it's not good enough. Well, it held the snot and I blew my nose with it, so, was it good enough? It got the job done. I mean, I'm not one of those people who says good enough is good enough. I'm not. But there is a level to this, a rational level that seems to be right out the corner, or right out the door, rather. These people will argue online and on survival forums, that unless you have the patented, super Gidget 2000 unobtainium, you can't possibly live in the modern world or survive the common cold if you don't have it. And it only costs 19 installments of $6,000. And you can mortgage your house to get it. And it's that kind of mentality. I'm gonna tell you a story. I saw a guy at a gun show. It was years ago, and he was selling a knife. It was about this big. And he had literally the best snake oil salesman, motif going that I've ever seen. He sat and explained to me how I had to buy this knife because it was designed for special forces. It was designed for the super secret covert ops wing, of whatever. And that to buy it, I had to have a criminal background check. And I had to pay for a $600 training class. Then they would sell me the knife after I took the training class. And he went through all this horse hockey about how you could take a whole human head off in 2 seconds with this knife, and that decapitation was the common, and I just listened to this guy, and I thought, this guy is destined to make money off of the foolish. He's destined to make money off of some fanboy somewhere. He's destined to make a lot of money off of a gear snob somewhere. Me, I saw it for what it is. I saw him as a wholly owned, subsidiary of Fly-By-Night Industries. I saw him as the subsidiary company, of Flim Flam Incorporated. And I saw him fully protected by the law firm of Dewey Cheatham and Howe. And that's all that he was. And there is a lot of that out there in the gear world. But one of the things that we find out there in the gear world, and it's just, it's everywhere. Whether it's that knife that I was just talking about or 1,000 other things, we find the fanboy. And, you see them, they're out there waving their banner, they're waving their flag everywhere. They're a fanboy of something, and I'm a fanboy of a few things. I'm a fanboy of a piece of gear that I like, something that's quality, but I don't have a cult-like mentality, and I didn't fall for the snake oil salesman who told me that I had to buy a $600 class and pay for a $30 background check to buy a $600 knife that then somehow they'd have to register like a gun. I'm sure that appealed to somebody, and it's out there. And believe it or not, there are tons of people, I see them all the time on survival forums, they're dumb enough to fall for this stuff. And if you go to an AK forum, if you go to an AR forum, if you go to any of these things, Glock forum, whatever, you've got fanboys. And they are cult-like, devoted to what they have. Now look, I don't say the AK-47 is a bad gun. I don't say the Glock is a bad gun. I don't say that the AR is a bad gun. I choose my gear based on practical necessity and fact. If I am in sub-Saharan Africa or the Middle East and I am called upon to operate in that area, I will almost invariably pick an AK-47 because it is the king of the roost around there. Ammunition, magazines, and so on and so forth around every corner. That's practical thinking. So I'll get one. I'll use it. Here in the United States, the king of the roost is the AR-15 rifle, which I do happen to like a great deal and think it is a better gun than the AK-47. So I know some of the fanboys out there are going to get mad about that. Don't care. But here, every patrol car, every gun shop, the most popular rifle sold in the country is the AR-15. So just for the practical thinking of it, it makes sense. It makes total sense. Now, then you get into, and the ultimate cult that's out there in the firearms world is the AK cult, the AR cult, and the Glock cult. And I see these guys, I always know that they're Glock fanboys because the first thing that they do is they cross themselves and they sit down and they start, "My Glock, which art in heaven, Gaston be thy name, Gen 1 through 4 have come, 5th in heaven with you." And I see it all the time. I see the Glock fanboys. I see the AK fanboys. I choose things on practical necessity. I choose them on quality and practical necessity. Is the Glock a good choice for here in the United States? Of course it is. It's in half the law enforcement holsters. Is it the best gun ever made? No, it's not. And they're tools. You put them in a toolbox and you use them. Different tools for different jobs. And I see guys all the time, well, I don't care, man, my gear needs to exceed its design parameters. That's like saying I want to be able to take that I should be able to take my pistol out of my holster and pound tent stakes with it all day. That's what that thinking is, outside the design parameters. If you let everybody have their way, there's a good story about this. If you let everybody have their way in the knife world, they'll all be walking around with a damn scalpel or a 6-foot crowbar that's got an edge sharpened on it. Seriously, that's what they'll have. The damn thing will be 2 inches thick. It'll look like a splitting maul that's 6 feet long, or fro, and it'll have an edge on it. And if you go to the gun world, there isn't a person in the world, especially soldiers. You ask a soldier is always guaranteed to choose the one thing he doesn't need. And it's the same damn thing in with cops, and it's the same thing with people in civilian life. You give a soldier a choice. He wants to carry the shortest shorty carbine that he can get his hands on. I need something with a 7-inch barrel or a micro 2.5-inch barrel AR-15, and I need it to have a 90,000 round magazine on it. And that's what they do. And it's the furthest thing in the world from what they need. But it's cool, man, and it's what they want. But it doesn't bear any resemblance to what they need. And that's one of those big things right there. Nobody liked the 20-inch M16. Everybody says, oh, man, they saw people with the 10-inch Colt Commando, the little, we get a 7-inch barrel pistol, and I got to have that. And it's that fanboy thing. And then all of a sudden you got dudes running around in desert environments with short-barreled carbines, where the average shooting distance is 500 yards. And you're running around with a short rifle. You know, that's stupid. The 20-inch gun would have done you much better in those circumstances. And I make all my decisions based on practical necessity. I'm not a gear snob per se. I am kind of a gear, well, floozy. I mean, I buy a lot of it, you know. I mean, I do. And we're all guilty of it, you know. And I'm not trying to be personally insulting to too many people, just some. And, you know, but you choose your gear based on necessity. You choose your gear based on quality, and you choose your gear based on what the hell you can afford. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, if you've spent family grocery money and 3 months worth of your rent or mortgage payments because I had to have the one thing, man. Well, that's great. You and that one thing can sit in your car while your old lady leaves you and your kids are down there, you know, being taken care of by some other dude that she's with because she divorced you. You know, you can live in your car and eat your ramen, you know, that you cooked over a Bic lighter in the back seat and be happy with it because you did that. You know, survival is about more than that. It's about survival, life in general, not just surviving in the woods and so on and so forth. If you're a survivalist, you want to survive. That means you want to keep a roof over your head when you're in civilian life too. You know, you want to keep all these things going. But that's a subject for another video, which I plan on making. But it's like this. Here's a good example of the gear snob. Nobody would ever say in the gear snob community that this is a good knife. Now, one person. Now, this thing is super ancient. I've had this since I was 12 years old. I got this for Christmas on my 12th year of life. It's a Camillus, made up like a K-bar. Camillus used to have a contract with the military, and he used to make this. This thing was issued in Vietnam, and even before, made by the Camillus Knife Company. And this particular knife, been around for a long time. I'm over 40 years old now. And got this when I was 12. Been using it ever since. It's gutted more deer. It's done all kinds of stuff. It's built more shelters. I don't use it anymore. Now it's just a keepsake for me. But if you look at this, I've sharpened about, 10-15% of the blade off of this knife. It's so old. And it, you know what? It never broke. Never broke. It's a little rat tang. Never broke. 7-inch blade. It carried me through all kinds of years of use. And I used it within its design parameters for what it was meant for. And I've had it, and it never let me down, and I'm not dead. You know, I didn't baton the damn thing. But this knife, back when I bought it, was probably about 28 bucks. You know, maybe a little less. I think it was maybe $24 when I bought it. Or, you know, when my parents let me buy it, I should say. But a little expensive, but still not expensive, you know, for back then. I mean, we had much more expensive things back then. But, you know, this was in the $20 range, you know, $20, $25. And, you know, it gave great service. But a gear snob today would look at that and go, oh my God, you can't survive with that. And blah, blah, blah. This thing's been to the UP with me. This thing's been to Florida. It's been to the Appalachian Mountains with me. It's been to Alaska with me. This thing's been all over. It did just fine. Did just fine. It was quality manufactured. I mean, you know, as far as decent quality, meant to hold together. Yeah, it had some milling marks on it and some parkerization stuff that wasn't quite right. So what? It didn't affect the function of it in the long run. You know, and I've used things like this. This is a K-bar. Now, this is a very different K-bar. You'll notice the blade design is different. You know, this one wasn't made very long, but I really liked it because it was more of a fighter than an outdoor knife. But it was used as an outdoor knife. Those are sparks. That's from a ferro rod, ferrocerium rod right there. Burned through, took the coating off. But this knife has been around for a lot of years. It's rendered really, really good service to me, and I've done everything with it, and it's never let me down. It's about a $50 product. And on the upper end of that, you know, I have $250, $300 stuff. Do I think that this is the best knife in the world? No. At the end of the day, I bought this knife because I like this knife. I bought it because it was a super high quality knife. I don't think I need this to survive. I bought this because I wanted it, not because I needed it. Now, the gear snob will tell you you can't live without it. I don't believe that. I bought this because I wanted it, because I have a human desire, just like the rest of us. We all like nice toys, okay? That's what we got. And this, to me, was a very nice toy, and I liked it very much. And I actually bought a couple of them. I bought one to give to each one of my children, okay? And I bought one for me to use. But the point is, though it's a really nice knife and everything like that, and it does its job great, I don't think I have to have that. You know, you see me using stuff like this all the time, this Becker. You know, now I dressed it up with some scales. Were those necessary? No. The scales that came with it were fine. This Becker BK7, though, you know, $80 or so. This is going to do the business. This is more than you need. It's a great piece of kit. But there's a lot of gear snobs out there who'll sit and look at that and they'll act like there's filth on it or something, like there's maggots crawling on it. And they'll start talking about, you know, their fiddleback forge, you know, you've got to have this, you know, or my Survive knives. And I'm not cutting those companies any crap. They make good products, and if you can afford them, buy them, man. But don't sit and tell people that they have to have them, that this is, I don't know how you could even survive in the woods without a fiddleback forge knife. You know, and I see people just attacked online, man, on the forums about this. Look, that is a $30 knife. And this one is the rare exception. It actually works. I mean, I've had no trouble with this thing. You know, it just works. It holds together, holds a nice edge. You know, unfortunately, fortunately, it is in that lower dollar category. But this is a tank. It's a beast. It's a Schrade SCHF 3N. And it just works. You know, it does everything that you could ever ask of it. Now, is there nicer? Yeah. You know, will that work? I kind of think it will, you know. I mean, what I'm saying is, and I could do this with guns, I could do this with backpacks, everything. As a matter of fact, while I'm talking about it, why not? You know, this is a good piece of military surplus. And it is a little bit on the slightly higher end of military surplus as far as cost, but it's nowhere like a Kelty. And I hear people all the time, oh, God, man, you know, I only buy a Kelty. I only buy a pair of Danner boots. Well, look, I buy quality, too. But I do look for value, okay? I have Matterhorn boots. I have Danners. I have Original SWAT. I have several other brands of boots. And as long as they're value and they do what I need them to do, even if I do have to pay a little more or whatever, I do it, you know? But this Mora, I wanted to hate this Mora. I wanted to hate this so bad because of its price point. I did. And the more I used it, I have one on every one of my backpacks now for one reason. This is nowhere near as good a knife as those. This is not a survival knife. It's not a knife that I would bet my life on. What this is I process food with it, I clean and scale fish with it, I gut game with it, I make little feather sticks and tiny traps, and it does that perfectly. Perfectly. You know, like I said, wanted to hate the knife and couldn't because it did everything it was supposed to. It cost $12. And I can throw one in every one of my backpacks. Is that right for you? Well, I don't know. You know, I also have a Becker BK16. I have SE4s, and I use them for the same purpose kind of thing. But this, I mean, you know, this is one of those rare values. It's one of those things that, even though it is low cost, does everything that you want it to do. Now, if you take this thing and decide I'm going to try to use it as a wedge and use it for everything else and be my main knife, I think you're foolish. Okay? As a backup little companion thing, which that's even called a companion, and then it works perfectly. But, you know, I buy surplus and stuff a lot of times because it represents a lot of quality for a great deal of value, you know, and that's all subjective. I mean, some things that are values are, you know, cost money, and some things don't. Some things that are quality, you know, aren't necessarily going to give you that value, but, you know, you look for quality. You buy the best that you can afford, yes, but you keep the shit within reason. And you don't sit here and come across with this attitude of superiority with everything. I mean, I guess we're all guilty of it to a short degree or some degree. But what I'm against, I guess, is the guys that you see online. They have $2,000 worth of optics mounted on their rifle. They have a $2,000 rifle. They've got a $1,000 tricked out pistol. They got a $1,000 knife. You know, they got $2,000 worth of, you know, hyper stealth clothing, scent masking, you know, invisibility predator screen. And somehow, you know, is that best? Probably. Is that practical for everybody? Not a chance in hell. You know, but then they shame everybody with their gear. You know, well, I got real gear. Okay, dude. special warfare people used to go over the gun walls of boats with one of these in their teeth, or a Sykes Fairburn commando dagger, and get business done. You know, and that was done by training and skill. That was done by men who rough men ready to use violence. And the point is, you know, if yeah, gear is great. Gear is great, and you should have gear, and you want to have gear, and so on and so forth. But you don't got to shame people with your gear, man. You don't got to sit and look down on the guy next door because he's got an Alice pack and, you know, an A2 M16 or AR-15 rifle. I wish we all had M16s. But you ain't got to sit there and say, you know, wow, you know, I bought the Reaper Menace to Humanity 7000, you know, and that over there. Be glad the guy's got a rifle. Be glad the guy's got a rifle and thinks like you. Be glad that the guy's got gear and thinks like you. Be glad you got somebody to hang out with at the gun range and talk about your views. Quit shaming people online on forums. Be glad you got somebody to talk to. Be glad you got other men who feel the way that you do and want to damn well talk about it. Don't shame the guy. If the guy's wrong about something, fine. Point out, correct him, help him along. If the guy's a jackass, then tell him that he's a jackass and move on from him. You know, but the fact of the matter is, half the people that I see out there, they're shaming people over their gear. Essentially, you're saying, well, you're poor and I'm not. I hang out with Chip and Buffy at the Hamptons. You know, and that's what I see. I've never treated anybody like that a day in my damn life. You know, and if you're out there doing it, then you're the jackass in this. Not somebody else. Not the guy who bought the best he could. What the hell's wrong with you people? You know, so that's what I got to say. You know, and look, I like gear and I like brands and stuff, but we don't have to do that. You don't have to use it as a shaming tool. And you don't have to go get Chip and Buffy to look down their nose at your neighbor next door or the guy online, you know, because he doesn't have this or that. You know, sometimes they don't need this or that. Sometimes they don't. You know? If he's a budget warrior, then he's a budget warrior, man. He's doing the best that he can. If he's a guy who's got all the gear that he needs and it served him well for a long period of time, and he's getting everything done that he needs to, and he's capable of surviving and stuff like that, I don't think that the name Fiddleback on his knife makes one iota of difference one way or the other, whether it says Gay Bar or Fiddleback, or whether it says Blind Horse or Survive or whoever. I don't think that his backpack name determines whether or not he's going to live through the apocalypse. You know, a piece of LC2 gear versus, you know, a $200 other piece of gear is mostly irrelevant. As long as it's good gear and it works and they're, you know, they're out there, just be grateful that you have other like-minded people and men to hang out with and do these things with. I just hate going to the gun range or going place like that and seeing people shame each other over this kind of stuff. And every night when I go online and look at forums, hell, I don't even get involved commenting most of the time, because all it is it's a fest of people. That's all it is. It doesn't get any better. They just do that, and all the time, you know, they're doing that nice, and somebody to one brand or another has dropped down on bent knee, you know, and is praying to the almighty consumer-based whatever product from Flim Flam Incorporated, and they are devoted to them, you know, and really a lot of times what they're devoted in is this: my wallet's bigger than yours. So stop that. You know, quit being snobs about this stuff. Somebody's wrong, tell them they're wrong. But stop it. Stop the snobbish stuff. Anyway, I'm Mike with the School of Self Reliance. If you like what we do, like us on Facebook, watch our videos, share our videos, and donate to us on Patreon. Help us out with that. Thanks for watching.